Okay, I think everybody's here and I'm the last one in my seat. So let's call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Board of Selectmen, Monday, April 4th, 2022. We're beginning at 6:31 p.m. And minutes tonight are being taken by Sharon George, and the meeting is being recorded. So welcome to everybody who's here. I have a couple of items on my chairman's report, but before we do that, I'll take any public comment on items that are not on the agenda.
I have a public comment.
Just a minute, Sheila. We've got two other people with their hands up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ann?
Just checking, is somebody the host on this?
Yes. Yes, Greg is?
I'll make you co-host, Jeff, as well.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Coyne, you have a comment on something that's not on the agenda.
Yes, and thank you for taking my call. I had the opportunity to attend a Bruins game last Tuesday, and I was quite pleased to see that there was no masks, no social distancing, and no vaccine card man to get in there. And I was hoping to hear something from the board about the hybrid meetings that you have approved that we have yet to be able to partake in. If you could just enlighten that. And if there's a reason why we're not using it, it seemed like a great idea, and would love to see it happen and get to look at people again and reconnect. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to comment extensively on that. Just to say that there has been a first training for board and committee members who will be running those meetings, the hybrid meetings. The plan for the hybrid meeting at this point has been to have only board members or committee members or commission members in the room with any applicants and or their representatives, and for the public to participate in a hybrid Zoom format, that the public would not be in the room. That's the plan at this particular time. Okay, Sheila Hill.
Thank you, Jeff. Sheila Hill, 2 Running Ridge Row. So I have a goal for the future of Manchester, and my goal is to keep it small, preserve its historical character and abundant natural resources, but above all, to keep it small. For the past 3 years, I have been focused on the threats to my goal as advanced by the state's MAPC, Metropolitan Area Planning Council, 40B being the first, 40R, which we've narrowly escaped thanks to hopefully cell technology coming in, and now 40A. Regrettably, the role of town planner has become the main conduit, if not the promoter.
Sheila, do you have a comment? This is not a comment. This is like a manifesto. So
it's a manifesto.
yes, I'm not going to entertain a manifesto.
Okay, well, let me cut to the chase. How about 1 sentence, 2 sentences?
Okay.
I believe that we can achieve the diversity of housing we need in this community without the town planners' sponsorships of these programs, particularly 40A. I am very much a believer in the principle of equity. My first concern is to promote the equity of the residents and taxpayers of Manchester. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am going to print the rest of this, though, for consumption.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, board.
Okay, in the chairman's report tonight, I have two items. One is that we received a number of emails, like 3 or 4, concerned about the fact that there is a Board of Selectmen meeting tonight and a planning board meeting tonight that overlapped, and that both of them have important agenda items for people in the town, and people felt concerned that they would not be able to attend both meetings. This is an unfortunate circumstance that happens from time to time. And I want to read something that the chairman of the planning board wrote. But first to say, before I do that, to say, the Board of Selectmen, for as long as I've been a Manchester resident, which is now 23 years, has always met the first Monday and the third Monday of the month, with the exception of when a holiday falls on those Mondays. The planning board has met on the second and the fourth Mondays of the month. And that scheduling works out pretty well, except that in the past several years, the number of meetings that have been necessitated by all the different initiatives that have come across into the town has led to more than more than 2 meetings a month. The planning board chose at a meeting that they were having to meet on April 4th. The board already had a regularly scheduled meeting that night. Board of Selectmen did. And in explaining what happened, the chairman of the planning board wrote the following comments in an email that he sent to one of the people who had sent in emails complaining about this overlap. And this is a quote from Ron Mastrogiacomo. I stumble over his name every time I say it. The planning board is in the process of finalizing our recodification language for various sections of our current zoning bylaws. This process is going on for 3 years. While I understand having 2 meetings from different boards on the same night is not the norm and not the best, it is not unprecedented. We are trying to get our recodification language finalized to present at public hearings prior to special town meeting in June. This has caused us to hold extra meetings when our board can be available. We are not expecting to take public comments tonight, so viewing the tape would not be counterproductive. We plan to make public comments at soon to be scheduled public hearings on this subject. Hope this helps. So what I would like to just add to that is that the boards in town, for the most part, are volunteer boards. People who come from our own community, other residents. And there is no agenda or attempt to prevent public discussion of the matters that come before these boards. And any innuendo to that extent is just way off the mark. In that regard, there was a letter published in the Cricket this week. This is a separate item. There was a letter published in the Cricket this week commenting on my decision not to allow, and the board's concurrence, not to allow public comment on dispatch at our last meeting. This was the first meeting, as I explained that night. This was the first meeting that we had an opportunity to publicly discuss the dispatch center feasibility study. it was an opportunity for the board to digest what they read in the study and to talk about how we might proceed. I said at that meeting, and in fact, the board voted and voted twice, that we would schedule 2 public forums before the town election. And those public forum were voted on in our last meeting. Initially, they were voted on for April 14th and May 12th. Then a decision was made to change that to April 14th and May 5th. We will be holding public forum on dispatch to clarify the different aspects of dispatch and the information that's been produced in the public over the past year and a half. This is in addition to 3 public forums that we held last summer on dispatch. So having one night where we did not include public comment so that we could talk about our reactions to the feasibility study, I think was a reasonable path to take. I'm not going to get engaged in a debate tonight, Mr. Coyne. That's my chairman's report, and we're going to move on to our agenda.
Well, I'd like to respond to it because.
I would like to ask you that, tell you that, I would like to say to you, Mr. Coyne, that if you continue to interrupt the meeting, I will remove you from the meeting. This is not a debate. That was the chairman's report. It's not a debatable item. The first item on our agenda tonight is the dispatch ballot question discussion. And I would ask Mr. Federspiel to begin that discussion.
Okay, so you, at your last meeting, when you were discussing the dispatch and the feasibility study, you made the decision that it would be best to seek a non-binding referendum from the voters. And the best way to do that would be at the election, as we get a much higher turnout at elections than we do typically at a town meeting. Originally, you were thinking to seek a non-binding vote at a town meeting, but your discussion led you to feel that it would be best to do it at the ballot. So, which is your prerogative, and it's perfectly in your authority to do so. And so, state law says that ballot questions should be in the form of a yes or no answer. They discourage and don't recommend that you give choices on a question, A, B, or C, or what have you. And so at Jeff's suggestion, we looked at the state referendum questions, the format of a petition referendum on a state ballot. And typically it starts with the question. It has a brief explanation, and then it has a yes vote means you're in favor of whatever the referendum is, and a no vote says that you're not in favor. So I crafted a draft of a ballot question using that format, and it's in your package, and the package was also posted, so it is online. The draft questions, if it's useful, I can read it, Jeff, and then you can have a discussion.
I think, Greg, it may be better if what we do is we put this up. So I'm going to have to grab the page and I can post it up. Bear with me for just a second.
Yeah, I have it here, Jeff, if you want me to put it up.
Okay, go ahead. Let me just double check and make sure you've got share. There you go.
Oh, where'd it go? Too many things open.
And you had a
Yes.
question while Greg's putting that up?
Yeah, I think we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. We need to discuss the costs. We haven't agreed on we haven't talked about the model we're going to use and how and what costs are appropriate. So I have no problem with the form of the ballot question, but I do question the numbers before we've had a chance to go over them. as a
Okay,
board.
okay, so I'm sorry, Greg, let's take this back down and let's go to that discussion. I agree with you, Ann. So in our previous discussions of dispatch, we talked about different scenarios, including the current scenario, the in-house 2-on scenario, and 4 different regional scenarios, varying primarily with a receptionist in the lobby, from no receptionist and a secure lobby area with video and audio contact with the regional dispatch, up to full coverage 24/7. So, Ann, do you want to start us off in that particular area?
Sure. My question is, in the case of the in-house 2-on, is that continuous 2-on, or is that 2-on except when somebody's on vacation or out sick?
That is pretty much continuous. It relies on reserves and part-time people to fill in, just like we do now.
Yeah.
I can't give you an absolute guarantee that that number is sufficient to do that all the time, but it's pretty close.
When you say 2-on, and you're referring to 2 shifts covering the lobby?
No, I'm
Or
two shifts of dispatchers, or
2 shifts of
two
dispatch. Okay, thank you.
dispatchers on continuously.
Thank you.
And if we could guarantee that there wouldn't ever be a problem when we didn't have to, I'd be more comfortable.
So basically, it's taking today's dollars where we are having 1 on 24/7 and doubling it. So I'm pretty confident that number, that 783 number, minus the grants that we would continue to receive, would provide 2 on every shift.
Okay. Why does 406 not double to 80812?
Because there are some training dollars in there that I did not double.
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, it's not that much of a difference if you to put it to 812 versus 783.
Thank you. That was my major question.
Okay. Any other comments on the model? John? I'm sorry, Becky.
Guess I better change what color my hand is.
It's in the ficus bush.
It is, it's out in the, anyway, I wanted to ask regarding the numbers for the in-house 2-on. We currently do rely on reserves. And one of my questions is well, the state's going to be going forward with phasing out the reserves, I believe. And if that's the case, how is that going to change the cost? It's got to greatly increase. So that's one question. And the other one, if it comes back to me, well, that's the first one. Let's go to that first. Hopefully the other one will come back.
So Becky,
So I
your
know that-
question, I'm sorry, go ahead, Greg.
So in terms of, the availability of reserves in the future, bit of a different class of reserves. We don't always use a reserve officer, police officer. It's a fill-in dispatcher. So there are different qualifications, though oftentimes we do use, police officers, reserve police officers as fill-ins for the dispatch operations. I know that Chief Fitzgerald would like to move to a model of a four on, 2 off schedule and hire a 4th full-time dispatcher rather than rely on part-time and reserves for the weekend coverage. And so that would make it easier to staff the weekends. So
Don't we have to do that? I mean, if the state is mandating that, all reserves be full-time
They're not.
accredited police officers, then we won't have the reserves.
Well, like I say, there are dispatchers, part-time dispatchers who are not police officers.
If
So
we,
right. So you don't necessarily have that requirement, but like I say, we currently do rely certainly on reserve police officers as fill-in dispatchers. I think I saw the chief.
but I want to finish before Todd comes on. I want to go ahead and finish my questions because he'll probably have comments on those as well. So the reserves, and when we do have police officers who are on doing dispatch, we pay them it's time and a half. Is that correct?
If it's one of our full-time officers, yes.
Okay. The other question I have regarding the grant money that we do rely on to help out there. If we choose or opt as a town not to take the 40A from the state, is that grant money also monies that are tied into the town getting funding from the state, or is that a different pool?
That's a different pool. So the 911 grants are not tied into the 40A law, new law.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Chief Fitzgerald, can you hold on for just a second while the other 2 board members the other 1 board member who has his hand up, and the other 2 board members who have their hand up.
Yep, that's
get their
fine.
questions out since you can respond to all of them.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Round, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Jeff. So I have a question. Greg, in general, I mean, there are a number of different paradigms that are possible with 2 dispatchers on duty. Maybe you're hiring 1 extra one, maybe 2 extra ones. There's a floater involved. Is the number that you've got in here at this 7.12 million, is it about that regardless of which paradigm you kind of operate on? And I understand under those circumstances, you can't be sure exactly which one's going to fit best.
So that's the most expensive way to go. That would be the full 2 dispatchers on every shift, 24/7. So if
Okay, but those
if you-
dispatchers may not necessarily be employees. They may be part-time people or something else. And I'm just wondering,
yes.
in other words, that number might come down if you're dealing with people who are reserve people or something like that. Would that be correct?
Well, I don't see it. If you're doing 24/7, 2 dispatchers on, you're not going to be spending, you're going to be spending in that 800,000 range annually,
Okay. Okay. So
regardless of how
I'm
you,
yeah, I'm just assuming that regardless of how exactly you do that, that number is going to be right around that number.
yeah, for the 24-hour
You know,
day, yes.
for somebody reading this. Okay. And the other question I had, is there an expectation that there be a new assistant for the fire department that would be built into a cost as well? If it would go to regional?
Only if you decide that you want to staff the lobby part-time. So you could shift your current public safety administrator who does mostly police, but does 8 to 10 hours in fire. And if she becomes the lobby receptionist during the day, then my thinking would be to take away her fire duties and get a new part-time person to help with fire. But that's built into the cost model of that 12-hour lobby option,
Okay.
and the others as well, in the 18-hour
Okay.
and 24-hour.
So I think I understand. I just think we probably, when we get to the information on the question, we've got to be a little more specific on what the assumptions are, and we're kind of pushing them around here a little bit right now.
Yeah, so there are a lot of notes on the bottom.
Yeah,
We can
yes,
certainly-
we need another line in there,
right. We can
whatever
certainly-
we settle on. Okay,
We could certainly
Thank you.
elaborate on those, and we can elaborate on those during the forums. And
yes,
once you settle on your preferred option, then we can spell that out in a fair amount of detail.
Thank you.
Okay, Ann,
I think I could use a mouse by now. My question is, you mentioned going to 4 and 2. My understanding is that if we go to 4 and 2, a full-time employee works 17 days less per year than on the current 5 and 2 schedule. It does reduce the problem of staffing on weekends, but we would then have 4 times 17, which is 62, 68 extra days that we need to cover. So that seems like an expensive alternative.
Yeah, you have to weigh that against trying to eliminate the need for overtime. So that's, we can run through those scenarios and see how they compare.
I think we should run through those scenarios, because I think adding an extra 68 days a year is going to raise your 700 and what right 83 substantially.
okay. Chief Fitzgerald,
Yes, thanks, Jeff. I just wanted to clarify the reserve officer versus the dispatcher or part-time dispatcher. Currently, like Greg said, we have part-time dispatchers that are not trained as reserve police officers, but all our reserve police officers currently are trained in dual roles. So that's where it's coming from. So even if we lose the reserves down the road, we will still have maintained the ability to hire part-time people if needed.
Sarah Melish,
Yes, as the chair of finance committee, I just wanted to let the board of selectmen know where we stood on our last vote with respect to the dispatch. And our vote was to go regional with an 18-hour lobby. We will be looking at it again in a couple of weeks, but that was what our position was. Thank you.
Okay. The timelines that we're working with on this for inclusion in the town election ballot are that we have to have our final language and a ballot warrant approved by April 12th, Greg?
Correct, next Tuesday.
Before 5 o'clock?
Before 5 o'clock, yes.
Okay, so Sarah, that FinCom has made a recommendation and they're going to look at it again in a couple of weeks. I know you guys have been under the gun in terms of bringing in the budget and there's not been a lack of meetings on the part of FinCom. Been meeting weekly. But we're facing a April 12th deadline to have final language on this. And we were going to try and finalize it tonight. Sarah.
Sorry, I was muted. Based on our meeting last week, my guess is we will not change our vote. I believe we're meeting on the 12th. No, I don't know when we're meeting. It's not next week, it's the week after. Maybe the 12th, which is too late.
You're meeting the 7th, this Thursday, and then.
No, we're not meeting the 7th.
Oh, you canceled that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're meeting on the 14th, I believe,
Okay.
because 40B is on the 12th. No, I don't, 14th, I don't know. We may be on the 12th. Sorry.
Sarah, could you elaborate just a little bit on what the financial reasoning was for 18 hours?
Yeah, I think that the information we received was that there's very low volume on the night shift. And that therefore, if there was reception lobby coverage for 2 shifts, that it was not a big issue to have a remote solution for the night shift because the volume was so low. And we felt that the cost differential of moving to the regional facility versus in-house was so substantial that it made sense. And we felt if you started with an 18-hour lobby, if there were issues later on, you could add another shift. But our feeling was based on the numbers, did not make sense to have a receptionist for that overnight shift. And that's where we came out. I think the reality is we're receiving a lot of pressure to add frontline officers and firemen. And it makes sense to divert the dollars to those positions rather than the dispatch. And the 18,000 odd dollars that the dispatch has said it's going to cost on an annual basis is approximately the same amount that they forecast back in 2012 as, I think it was $15 or $16 a resident. So, 80 odd thousand, even if after 10 years, they increase a charge to us, that has no comparison to what the cost would be in-house. And I think the issue is you look at the corporate world and it's quote unquote a call center. And they need to have their expertise in responding to the calls, but so do all call centers. And the issue is how much do you gain by having in-house versus saving the dollars? Regional, when we can use those dollars elsewhere. We're at the point where we've used up all of our excess reserves. So our budget next year is going to be very tight.
Okay. That difference number that we're talking about is $57,000 a year.
Between 12-hour versus 18-hour.
Correct. Sarah? You need
But
to-
not if you're talking regional, in-house versus regional.
No, I'm talking about between a 12-hour lobby regional and an 18-hour lobby regional.
Right, and we chose the 18-hour just
And
because of.
and that's a
volume.
$57,000 per year difference.
Right, and we just felt that was the way to go in to appease the taxpayers. And if it worked that we didn't need the 18 hours, then we could back off later, but it made sense to go in at that level at the beginning to give the additional comfort.
Okay,
That was option 2.
yes,
And I think the finance committee is pretty likely to endorse that position.
okay. Okay, John. You need to unmute yourself, John.
I have the same problem Ann does. Sarah, do you mean 18 hours or 16 hours? Because the shift is 8 hours. So you're talking 18 or you really mean 16?
The numbers that are given, John, in the chart that we have in front of us are 12 and 18.
Okay,
So it's not 2 shifts, it's from,
it's a little more.
Yeah, I think that might be a typo.
well, there's 6 hours difference between 12, 18, and 24.
Right.
Do the numbers reflect that, or is that a typo?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back in and revisit that to make sure.
Okay.
I-
Sarah?
Yeah, so our feeling was quote unquote option 2 was covering 2 shifts rather than 3 shifts.
Right.
So there's 24 hours in a day. So we were talking 16 hours.
Right. We have a problem with the numbers 12, 18, and 24 salary wise,
Right,
because the proportions are that there's a $57,000 jump between 12 and 18. And that's 6 hours, and that's not half again of 135,000.
I don't remember what our original
And
numbers were.
there's a $98,000 jump between 18 and 24. And that's a 6-hour difference.
And I
Right,
don't
it's-
have our original numbers that we were given.
Right. I know you looked at this chart.
Yeah, we had something long ago, sorry.
So Greg,
It looks like a typo to me, Jeff.
it's
Going
not
from
a typo.
100.
It's not a typo. If you look at lobby coverage costs, 12-hour lobby is 135. 24-hour lobby is more than double that.
Yes, correct. But going
Right,
from
it-
16 to 24 hours instead of 18 to 24, that's about a 50% increase from 192 to 290, which would be the number you would expect, or at least percentage wise.
It's less.
So I don't know.
It's
I don't
less.
know
It's
what's,
It's 57,000 as opposed to 62.5.
Yeah.
So the numbers don't add up from my point of view.
It's not an equal in the increments because of,
There are
Yeah,
things,
depending
ahead.
if you can rely on part-time versus full-time and et cetera. So it's not going to be exact in terms of, a doubling is doubling of cost. Doesn't,
there are also shift differentials, correct?
yes,
And those differentials increase as we go through the night.
correct.
So are you saying, Greg, that the 12, 18, 24 is an error in, it should be 12, 16 and 24?
I'm pretty sure that's the case. I would like to double check the numbers behind it. I don't have that. I don't have those calculations with me right now, but I can certainly revisit them.
Okay. Becky, you have a hand up.
Thank you, Jeff. I have some concerns. Looking over the information that we're looking at and trying to figure it out and have it make clear sense. And this going on to the non-binding ballot question. I think things like the shift in differentials, these are all things that need to be very clearly spelled out so that everyone can understand what it is that we're trying to understand. I just have real concerns with how we're going to make this extremely digestible. Thank you.
So I will say, these numbers are certainly very close to the final numbers. They may fine tune them a little bit, but magnitude wise, they're certainly in the ballpark. And your decision on which model you want to use as the comparison basis for the two options, once you make that decision, I will make sure to sit down with the chiefs and verify the numbers, and we will have that ready for the first forum next week.
What I mean by that is the background to the numbers. And again, as you said, for example, the shift differential. So if somebody's looking at numbers and saying they don't add up, then by explaining a little bit about the shift or whatever else comes into play in terms of understanding how those numbers are arrived at, should be very clearly explained.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a slide that just walks through the calculation.
On the ballot?
No, it's your forums.
Thank you. Yeah, that would work. But I still think the ballot itself needs to have some very clear.
Becky, if you look at state ballot initiatives,
Mhm.
they give a certain level of detail, but they don't get down into the weeds of shift differentials and things like that. They just give summary numbers. I think what's important is that we have information available to the public, both at our forum and at the on the website, that can be clearly discerned in terms of what the numbers are made up of.
Okay, well, this comes back to my concern with having it on a ballot question as opposed to a town meeting, but that's water over the dam. So, okay, thank you.
And
At our last meeting, Eli had 4 items for consideration. And Chief Fitzgerald said that the radio infrastructure question is part of which is the marine support, I think. And the switch between reach and code red support. Chief Fitzgerald said that he would have comments that he will be forwarding, and I haven't seen those.
So he did prepare those, and he did give those. But my fault for not putting it in the package.
Okay, that's only somewhat helpful right now since we have to make a decision tonight.
Yeah, frankly, I assumed that you were going to have another meeting to finalize this.
Well, okay, so that would be a very good thing. The minutes say that the board will meet twice in April. That's tonight and at a meeting that will be too late to change this.
Yeah, unless you hold a special meeting between now and Tuesday.
Okay. Do we have information on the difference between switch reach and code red?
I don't think we didn't go into the, no, we don't. The 2 very similar programs in terms of reverse 911 calls.
Mm-hmm. And one would be free with central dispatch and the other we pay for.
Yeah, it's like a $4,000 cost.
Okay, that's probably not worth anybody's time. Thank you.
any other board comments? Becky?
I'm in the process of trying to lower my hand, but thank you. There you go.
Mr. Coyne?
I think you muted him, Jeff.
Mr. Coyne? Can you unmute?
Sorry. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. That the fire department was going to take on 4 new full-time
I'm sorry to
firefighters.
interrupt. Bob needs to give his full name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Robert Coyne, 115 Beach Street.
Go ahead.
And at a low salary a total cost of the four of them
Uh,
amounts to about $240,000 a year.
The numbers that
That's
you
what
had,
factors into it?
Mr. Coyne, can you stop for a second?
Sure.
At a much earlier meeting of the Board of Selectmen on this, perhaps last summer, the discussion was raised about how any savings from going to regional dispatch might be distributed and whether it would be dedicated to public dispatch or not. That decision, the comments that were made at that time were that there's no specific allocation of those funds. There's no reserve of those funds for public dispatch. And the grant that you're referring to, the SAFER grant that Chief Cleary has applied for, currently offers 4 firefighters. He was asked to see if he could trim that back to 3 if the grant were awarded. The grant has not been awarded yet. And funding for that grant beyond the timeframe of the grant has not been guaranteed. So to put those firefighters into this proposal has not been the specific intent of the Board of Selectmen at this time.
Okay, I just want to comment that grant is for 3 years, I understand. So there's still 7 years of payroll for those extra firefighters. It's going to go on.
And Mr. Coyne, you're not listening to what I just said. There's no connection that's been established between the SAFER grant savings if the town goes to regional, and those monies that are saved going for those extra firefighters.
Well, I'm also considering the other 7 for the whole 10-year, 7-year period. The other 4 for the 7-year period. So
I don't understand where the breakdown is here. There is no guarantee. There is no guarantee that those firefighters who are being established through a SAFER grant will be funded by any savings from the proposed move to regional, if that's the decision of the town. Okay, so I'm trying to uncouple those two things. That doesn't mean that that money might not in the future be used in that way, but right now there is no quid pro quo that all the savings would go to public safety.
I just think those are expenses that should be considered as part of what the total cost of this move to Middleton would entail to the town.
I think another way to say it, though, is that the two are unrelated. If we stay in-house, we still may go forward with the SAFER or not. If we go to regional, we may go forward with the SAFER and expansion or not. The two are not related in the sense that they are independent decisions.
Thank you. I understand that, but there's still money coming out of the town treasury to pay those salaries. So thank you.
And that would be money that would be brought forward in a town meeting and have to be voted on by the town. That would have to be made at the end of any grant period, a part of the town budget. And the town budget is always voted on by the town. So Mr. Fetterspiel has said it much more briefly than I have. But these two, the public safety issues involved in having 2 in, 2 out in the fire department are separate in terms of any fund commitments from whether we go to regional or we stay in-house.
Well, it's my understanding that because we only have 12 full-time firefighters, the 2 plus 2 times 2 is for 16. And that's the reason that the other 4 new firefighters are being hired.
That's a different issue. I cannot speak to that issue. And I'd rather not get into a long discussion about the SAFER grant tonight, since the decisions about the SAFER grant have not been made yet. It's a different issue. And I don't know whether you're correct on that or not.
From Milford and me.
Well, I understand it's a different issue.
So we have,
It wouldn't,
but right, but I have to stick to an agenda, Mr. Coyne. And the agenda is dispatch tonight. And what we've been trying to say is that there's not a direct link between dispatch and 2 in, 2 out.
well, that's not my interpretation. And if
Your interpretation can be whatever you wish it to be. But I'm telling you that from the Board of Selectmen's point of view, that's not the
Yeah.
case.
Okay, well,
Okay, and it's not like the Board of Selectmen has this hidden agenda. We have been public in our meetings saying there's not a reserve of those funds for public safety. We've said that. That doesn't mean that they can't be used for public safety in the future, but there's not been a quid pro quo that those funds are going to be reserved for public safety. Any savings from regional. But our conversation tonight is around dispatch, whether how we go about putting a dispatch question on the town ballot where the entire town can vote to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen about what they want to do.
yes, no, I understand. But I think that the concept of putting 4 salaried firefighters on there, if we go to the Middleton dispatch.
Then we should debate that at town meeting, Mr. Coyne, and I don't want to continue this debate tonight.
All right, well, it's apples and oranges that we're talking about, but it all comes out of the town budget. That should
At
be
which
added to
time, that such a budget is proposed, I'd be happy to debate it with you.
Yeah.
We haven't proposed such a budget, and any budget like that would not be proposed for, if the SAFER grant came in and was accepted, it would not be proposed for another 3 years. So I'm trying to be really clear about this, that this is not
Yeah,
something
okay.
that's coupled. And I'd like to recognize Chief Cleary. Thank you, Mr. Coyne.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. I just want to make sure that whatever question is formulated, that we are talking apples to apples, either going to the regional or what it costs to have 2 dispatchers 24/7, regardless of lobby staffing. The lobby staffing is not a concern for me because our station is a dark station. We'd be going to the video and it doesn't bother us. It doesn't require any additional personnel in the fire department to man a window. I'm just concerned about the 2 dispatchers 24/7 if we stay in town, that's the minimum model that we're speaking of when we compare that to the regional. Thank you.
Okay, so The question is how we go about dealing with this, because there are numbers that are in the proposed ballot measure. There are questions about those numbers based on the public safety dispatch options spreadsheet. And we need to finalize the town election warrant by 5 o'clock on April 12th. Eli. You need to unmute, Eli.
Yeah, I was going to make a proposal there. I was going to make a proposal that what we do tonight is we simply select the model, since we have pretty clear guidance to roughly what these models describe and entail, even if there's some question about the final numbers in them. Select the model that we wish to represent on the ballot tonight. Not worry about finalizing the actual numbers, the dollar numbers in the ballot tonight. Finish up the language of the ballot tonight, because I do have opinions there. And then have one additional meeting at which we would finalize the numbers for the ballot.
Okay. Let's start with issues with the language. What Eli's suggesting is we suspend the numbers for tonight.
Yeah, but I was also suggesting that we pick the columns, which columns we
Yes,
we're arriving at.
yes.
Since we're in this territory, I would suggest that we finish that first.
Okay, so do you want to start that conversation off? And we're starting to run behind here, so I want to make sure that we don't get too far off here.
So I'll be simple. I think that we should be focusing on the in-house two on, if we're going to stay in-house, that we should bring it up to par with what we would get out of the regional. That's in-house two on. That current number is, well, that's the second column in our spreadsheet that we've been looking at.
Yep.
And for the regional, I would propose that we go to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th column, which is the reception area for 2 shifts, currently titled an NSR 911 18-hour lobby, but probably which is a 16-hour lobby, which is the same recommendation that FinCom made. And I think that those are the 2 columns that should be presented, were represented on the ballot. I think that those are the 2 columns that we should be deciding between as a board, and that's why that they should be on the ballot.
Okay, so for the members of the public who cannot, don't have this spreadsheet in front of them, the in-house 2 on is net operations of $712,384 annually. Capital costs over the 10 years of $650,000, which added together with 10 years of net operations at $7.12 million, comes out at $7.77 million. The 18-hour lobby, as it's written now, more likely 16-hour lobby, which would be 8 a.m. to midnight, something like that, is $192,000 annually for lobby coverage, $18,000 for a one-time capital cost, for a total of $1.938 million. Now, those numbers may change, but they are very close to where we are in terms of how they've been vetted and how they've been created. So these are 2 options. Do you want to make a motion on that, Eli? Because as with the state ballot, we don't want to fragment the vote with multiple options. We can either vote this straight up or down as you're proposing, which is in-house 2 on and 16/18-hour lobby at those numbers that I just said.
All right, let's see how to propose this. I will make a motion that the board focus its consideration between the 2 options of in-house 2 on, updating our local dispatch to in-house 2 on 24 hours versus moving to the regional dispatch with a 2-shift presence in the lobby. And that the board place those 2 options in the non-binding measure in the ballot.
Second,
Okay, so moved by Mr. Bowling and seconded by Ms. Harrison. Any further discussion from board members? Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Round,
Yes.
Ms. Jakes,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
yes,
Mr. Bowling,
Yes.
chair votes yes. So those are the 2 options that will appear on the ballot: a yes vote and a no vote against those 2 options. A yes vote to move to regional center, and no vote to retain in-house dispatch service enhanced to two dispatchers 24/7. Okay. Is there anything else that we need to discuss on this? Yes, we do. We have to come up with a date for a brief meeting to finalize the vote on the town warrant for the election.
Did you
And
want to go
also,
through some language or not?
And
Excuse
also,
me?
we're going to discuss the language on the ballot tonight, right?
Okay, let's get the date and then let's do the language. Yeah, let's do that in that order. The earliest that we can do it would be the 7th. And this is going to be a one item agenda. We could possibly do it on the 11th and ask the planning board whether they would start at 7. I think they do start at 7. Becky?
6:30. Sorry about that. Nope, I had my hand up because we needed to discuss the ballot language, but that was
Yes, we
already.
do need to discuss the ballot line.
But Monday,
So-
the planning board.
So,
meets
so what,
6:30.
what's your option? What would you like for an option for a meeting? We could do a daytime meeting, but I think that, and we could do a daytime meeting on the morning of the 11th or the 12th.
I'm available for either of those.
Okay
Likewise.
with me, Jeff.
12th is slightly better for me than the 11th.
In the morning.
in the morning.
Eli?
Any of those works for me.
Yeah, the 12th is very difficult for me to do. I have a meeting already at 9. If it's in the morning. It's a tough one for me to get out of. But if it needs to be, it needs to be.
7th or 8th then.
And you're blocked out on Monday morning?
Monday morning is, I mean, it's nothing that I can't pass on, but if we could do it on the 7th, that would be better for me.
We can't do a morning meeting on the 7th. Because it has to be posted for
Yes.
48 hours. And I don't know who's up on Thursday night.
I think it was
Yeah.
only the only the Board of Select, oh, but yeah, right, try again, Finance Committee.
Finance Committee has a meeting, yeah, at 7.
No, they don't.
They canceled that.
So there's no meeting posted for the 7th.
All right, I have to double check.
And Sarah said that she was,
Yeah, I think she's, well, I need to double check on that.
well, we could do this at 6:30, Greg, and it wouldn't interfere with Finance Committee because they start at 7.
No, that's fine.
And a half an hour should be enough if we deal with language now. I'm concerned that we're now up to 7:43 and we're half an hour off schedule already. And we still have the patient moderator waiting for us to get to him.
I think
Sarah?
we'll pick up.
The Finance Committee is not meeting April 7th.
Okay. So 6:30 on Thursday, the 7th, is that?
Could
Eli's nodding.
we possibly do it earlier? Is that, I mean, on the 7th?
Earlier is better for me. 5:30?
Do it earlier.
Ann,
Fine.
Eli,
Yep.
Greg?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll post tomorrow morning for 5:30 on Thursday, the 7th, to finalize the town election warrant. That'll be the only agenda item. All right, language. What are the concerns about the language? This is where we can really get into a time sink. So let's be as pointed as possible.
Jeff,
Yes,
I think you can probably, well, if you got the copy of the binding, the ballot question, can you put that? Yeah, there it is. Okay. You've got to keep it as simple as possible because voters are going to have to read this. And there's a lot of copy there right now. And I'm just looking at town in the middle of that paragraph where it says town needs to either bolster our in-house operations or seek services through a regional entity. Maybe after operations, you put a parenthetical phrase that with the second dispatcher on duty. And that's the primary issue here. And I think most of the other copy touches the other issues that we've been discussing.
So again, what's the proposal?
After the copy says in-house operations, and right after it says in-house operations, which is the, what, 6th line down in the large paragraph. Just put in a parentheses with a second dispatcher on duty. 24/7, I suppose.
And then did you mean to drop some of the remains?
No, I think that
Okay.
Just insert that. I'm just worried that the copy, it gets pretty laborious and for somebody to read through all of this and kind of digest it.
Okay.
But I think that that provides the key critical piece of information.
Okay, so you're asking to insert after in-house operations the phrase with
A second
two-
dispatcher.
with
With two,
two full-time
All right,
dispatchers,
all right. So that you know
Two.
that's what the total with two.
or to provide two full-time dispatchers.
Yeah.
Round the clock, though.
Yeah, on duty 24/7.
I think that needs to be, yeah, clarified or distinguished there.
Yes, you need to say that.
Okay, I would not put that in parentheses, but
Okay, well, I don't have to worry about that tonight necessarily, but
okay. Any other comments on this? We would need to change 12 to 16 on hours a day.
My,
yeah.
my comment is on the phrasing of the yes vote and no vote. I think that the yes vote's probably okay, but the no vote, I think, needs to be more clear about what we're talking about. I think that the way it's phrased could be misinterpreted. And I want the voters to be pretty clear that we're making a choice between two solutions, one which have some significant financial impact. So what I would say is I think we should change the a no vote item to something like this text. A no vote means that you would support increasing funding, both operation and capital, as described above, to update our local dispatch.
One more time, Eli.
A no vote means that you would support increasing funding, both operational and capital, as described above, to update our local dispatch. If you want to change that to in-house dispatch.
Can we keep the language the same and say favor? That you would favor?
Sure, that's fine. So it means that you would favor increasing funding, both operational and capital, as described above, to update our in-house dispatch service.
I disagree. I think support, I think support is the correct word.
in both places.
In both places.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, as long as it's the same in both places. Want me to read it again?
Sure.
Means that you would support increasing funding, comma, who's typing?
Sorry, I was writing by hand.
Okay. That you support increasing funding, comma, both operational and capital as described above, comma, to update our in-house dispatch service.
Eli, do you need to say operational and capital?
Yeah,
Is that
Yes.
critical or?
Yes.
I think it is.
So
I mean,
if
there
you
are
look at
two
the
numbers up there. Yeah,
So
there are
people
two
look at the
numbers.
You want to read that back, Greg?
So it means that you would support increasing funding, both operational and capital, as described above, comma, update our, I think you can- let's see. So no vote means that you support increasing funding, both operational and capital as described above, to update our in-house dispatch service.
I'd probably make the word operational the same as it is up above and say operating and capital. So that's exactly the same.
Fair enough.
And perhaps after capital, the word costs.
Mm.
With a comma after costs.
How about just saying increasing both operating and capital costs? Rather than leaving out the word funding.
Yep.
Did you want operating and capital capitalized or no?
I personally don't have a strong opinion. I'll take Greg's lead on that.
I think John's right with keeping it consistent with what's above. Also, a yes vote is all capitalized. A no vote, only the V is capitalized. And then at the in-house, capital costs are 650, 00. We need to add another 0 there. Thank you.
Finally, up in the end of the text, however, to maintain a staffed lobby for 12 hours a day, the town would incur the cost for this with audio, video contact available in a secure lobby the rest of the time.
I thought we were doing 16 hours there, not 12.
Mhm.
Right,
No,
right.
I'm sorry, the 16 hours, yes.
I would suggest in the second section of the summary that the sentence numerous public forums and discussions is superfluous. And as John pointed out, this is a lot to read. And taking out,
I was thinking that too, Anne.
Yeah.
But at the end of in a secure lobby, doesn't there need to be, don't we need a comma after that?
No,
I don't think so.
Oh, I see, never mind.
And Greg, just a grammatical comment where it says in our in-house operations, in the middle of that paragraph where we made that modification, it should be its in-house operations because it's referring to the town. The town needs to bolster its.
I don't know. Also, in-house operations, both there and in the final sentence, final line of that paragraph need to be capitalized.
Why should in-house be capitalized?
Because it's capitalized in the cost comparisons.
Maybe we could lower it in the cost. In-house, I see what you're saying. Okay.
In-house operations, I mean.
Maybe we could lower the house in the cost comparisons paragraph and.
No, that's something you can finalize at the last.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just gonna say, make them consistent.
Okay. Any further comments on this?
No, I'm happy with those changes.
John,
Mr. Chair,
just a minute, Sarah. John, you have your
Okay.
hand up?
I'm sorry, do I? Yes, you're right, I do.
Not anymore.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah Melish.
yeah, so are you talking about the regional 911 center? I think you chose the 16-hour, 18-hour lobby, which would, instead of 1.3
The
million.
numbers, Sarah, I understand. I understand, but the numbers are not, Greg's gonna go over the numbers and give us final numbers for our next meeting.
That would be 1.94.
Right, I'm gonna just double check them to make sure that that's the correct number.
Okay.
Thank you for that catch, but that's something that before we started to deal with language, we had said the numbers will change.
Okay, so we don't need to actually do a vote tonight on this, right? At all.
No, we don't. Okay. Any further questions or comments on this?
Yep. I think it would read better if we put the capital costs first and the operating costs second. Yes, there's striking differences between each of them, but I would like the 1.35 million and the 7.12 million to be the last thing that people read in each line.
Yeah, I completely support that. There was something about that that was bugging me and I couldn't figure out what it was. And, yep, that's it.
Okay. So that's going to need a colon after 20,000 and a space, and a colon after 650,000 and a deleted space.
Semicolon. Oh,
I'm
no,
sorry, semicolon.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Ann, you still have your hand up?
Oh, no.
Thank you. Okay, to move on to annual town meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there are three items here that we need to address. One is the assignment of articles. One is the final review and approval of the FY23 budget. And the third is the approval of the annual reports.
Jeff, I had a quick question on the official ballot with the annual town election.
Greg, can you end your screen share, please? Now I can see people. Becky,
My question is that it doesn't contain the the people running for Board of Selectmen.
there was a second.
Yeah. It was on the
Second.
back side, and it didn't transfer the first time around.
Thank you.
So there was a second document that was sent out about 12:30 today that updated the packet for tonight's meeting.
I didn't get home from work till 6, so I haven't had a chance to check out whatever came today. Thank you, though.
All right,
Now I can.
and that includes also the 5 people running for 2 seats on the school committee. And the fact that we only have 2 constables running since one person did not return papers. So we have 3 seats for constable. Okay, so Mr. Wilson is with us. Thank you for being patient. Alan?
You're welcome.
And we need to vote on every article?
Yes.
No, you've already approved the articles.
I know, but in terms of,
We just need a lead spokesperson for each one. And then in terms of endorsement,
but we don't do that on articles 1, 2. We do it on 3 on the regional North Shore Agricultural and
Yes.
Technical School.
yes, you make a,
We also need to identify who moves and seconds each article.
For every article,
Yes.
okay? I will move Article 1.
I'll second.
I'll move Article 2.
I'll move Article 3.
Who seconds Article 2?
Wait a minute. Yeah. And who's seconding Article 2?
I will,
Ann, thank you.
yes.
Article 3,
I'll move that. And speak to it if I need to.
seconded. I'll second it. Article 4, which is the main budget.
Doesn't FinCom usually?
No, we also,
Traditionally, the chair of the Board of Selectmen moves and the chair of the Finance Committee seconds.
you okay with that, Sarah?
Yes,
We're going to stick with tradition tonight.
exactly.
Okay.
Gotta get my words done.
Okay, and Article 5, capital costs, that reverses, right? Moved by FinCom and seconded by the selectmen.
I think it's been done both ways.
Okay. I'm happy to have it done that way. So Sarah would move it and I would second it. Okay, the next one is
The school budget.
the school budget. Is that
This is
also the chair?
What about 6, Article
That's-
6?
Article 6 is the school budget.
That's the one we're on.
There you
That's
go.
usually a member of the of the school board.
That moves it and a member of the selectmen seconds,
It can be either way.
or they move in second.
It can be either way. I think actually normally it's another member of the school committee from Manchester, but we can do whatever you would like. I'd stick with a member of the school committee.
School committee moves
And seconds.
and seconds. Okay, CPC.
I think it's usually been the chair of the CPC moves and the chair of the selectmen seconds.
Okay. Number 8. OPEB.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay. 9. The revolving fund. I can move that.
I can second.
We don't have John here anywhere. John, do you want to?
Yeah.
Trying to hurry up and jump in here because we're moving fast.
That's right. You're running through these. I was on mute there for a sec.
The zoning bylaw, I assume, is going to be moved and seconded by, well, it's petition of both the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board. So is that moved by the Planning Board and seconded by the Board of Selectmen?
Can be.
That's fine.
Okay,
I'm happy to second that.
that should be Becky, but you're going to have to give up one of yours, Becky.
Oh, I don't want to. All
Yeah,
right,
I know,
John,
I know.
which one of my seconds would you like, John?
Let's see, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Article 1, you have choices of Article 1.
1, 3.
We'll do it. You're actually 3? Okay, I'll do 3.
That's that John Round would move.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no. Okay, yes. So,
Okay, and then
so
that gets John in on 2, right?
which ones?
I think I'm in there on 2.
Mhm.
So he's speaking to Article 3. He'll move Article 3. What's the other one John's doing? Did he take another one from me?
No, I'm just seconds on, excuse me, seconds on the others.
What others?
I don't have John for any others.
John, second Article 1,
Okay,
okay?
There we go.
Article 7, we did. Article 8, 9, 10, or up to number 11. I would move this.
I'll second. Unless someone else wants to.
Article 12, I would move that and speak to it.
Second it.
And the famous Article 13. Is that always moved by the board, by the chair? Alan?
Yep.
Which
Okay.
may or may not happen, right?
Right, typically it doesn't, but
Probably
Okay.
either pass over, most likely. I think the chair of the finance committee normally seconds.
right.
Okay,
So just backing up to number 9, the revolving fund, who was the second on that? I had Jeff moving and
Becky.
Becky was, okay.
So what I have is Article 1. Bodmer Turner and Round. Article 2, Bowling and Harrison. Article 3, Round and Bodmer Turner. Article 4, Bodmer Turner and Sarah Melish. Article 5, Sarah Melish and Bodmer Turner. Article 6, School Committee, both. Article 7, Jack Burke and Bodmer Turner. Article 8, Ann Harrison and Becky Jakes, seconding. Article 9, Bodmer Turner and Jakes, seconding. Article 10, moved by Planning Board, seconded by Becky Jakes. Article 11,
4 in a row.
Piggy, here's the
Bodmer Turner and Becky Jakes, and a player to be named later. And Article 12, Bodmer Turner and Eli Bowling. Eli, you're only doing one of these.
He's
You've
done
had
a
your-
lot.
You've had your fair share in the past, though.
Yeah,
Gonna
let's
say.
spread it around.
And then Article 13, Bodmer Turner and Sarah Melish. Okay, is that copacetic with everybody?
Yeah.
All right. Now, our next item on our agenda is under town meeting is to the final review and approval of the FY23 budget. I think we do this by the same way that it's done during town meeting, where we take general government for a total of $4,983,930.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Moved by Ms. Harrison,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Bowling. Sharon, if I'm going too fast for you on these, because we're going to whip through these as well, just let me know. Okay? I don't want to go too quickly. Public safety for $3,925,448.
I move.
Moved by Ms.
Second.
Jakes,
Second,
seconded by Ms. Harrison. John, you gotta flip that switch
Yep.
fast. You're gonna be off of Jeopardy real quick. Public Works. 2 million.
I'll move it. I know what the number is. I can see it.
You have to, unlike Jeopardy, you have to wait until I give you the number. 2,319.
Okay, Alex.
2,319,592.
So moved. I'll
Moved
move
by
it
Mr.
first.
Round,
Second.
aggressively. Seconded by Ms. Jakes. Other environmental, 77,845.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Harrison, seconded by Ms. Jakes. Human Services, 345,993.
So moved.
Seconded by Mr.
Second.
Bodmer Turner.
Okay.
Library, 524,429.
So
Mr.
moved.
Bob Turner, I will recuse myself from this vote as my wife works there part-time.
Okay,
Second,
so moved by Ms. Harrison, seconded by Mr. Round.
No, Ms.
I
Jakes.
actually moved it.
oh, it's Jeff or Becky, yeah.
Okay,
Jeff, Becky.
moved by Ms. Jakes and seconded by Mr. Round. Parks and Recreation for a total of $366,093. I'll
So
move it,
moved. Okay, second.
and Ann will second. Debt service for $1,035,563.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Ms. Harrison, seconded by Mr. Round. Enterprise funds for $1,645,316.
I'll move it.
Second.
Mr. Round moves and seconded by Ms. Harrison. To that's it.
No.
No, just need a vote.
Yes.
Okay.
Two votes. Technically speaking, can we do two votes? One with everything except for the library, and then you guys vote the library.
Sure.
Thank you.
So Eli moves and Mr. Bond Turner. I guess we didn't have to go through and move and second all of those. Seconds. We have to have a total.
I think you have motions already, Jeff.
Yeah,
on all of
yeah,
them.
okay, so we're gonna take up all of the motions except for the library at this time. Because Mr. Bowling has recused himself. So is there any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Round,
Yes.
Ms. Jakes,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Bottom Turner votes yes.
Mr. Bowling votes yes too.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Bowling. Mr. Bowling votes yes too, so it's unanimous. Now we'll take up the library.
So moved to accept the fiscal year 23 budget for the library.
And
You've already
And
moved.
second.
We've already
Yeah,
moved
we
and
already-
seconded it, so we're just gonna take that one up now. And any discussion? Ms. Jakes,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Round,
yes.
Mr. Bond Turner votes yes, and Mr. Bowling abstains. Whew. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, my compliments on a rapid discussion of the budget and vote. It's an example that I hope to follow.
I hope that you can do it with less. No, I hope that you can do it as well, Alan. I know you will. I was actually trying to model myself on you. Okay.
Thank you, Alan.
We have as our
Thank you.
third
pleasure.
item is the approval of the Selectmen's annual report. For this, Mr. Wilson, you do not have to stay if you do not want to. It's an exciting vote.
I'm sure it is, but I'll have trouble getting to sleep as it is. So I'm gonna say goodnight.
Thank you for being so patient.
My pleasure. Thank
Good
you
night.
all.
That,
Thank you all for the hard work you do.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're trying to make it look hard.
Good night.
Good night.
yep.
Okay, so we have actually two annual reports under Selectmen's annual report. We have the report that I did. Greg, do we need to vote on your report?
No, I just included it for your information.
Okay, thank you. I just want to note that the changes that were sent in to me last week, as of 3/31, were all incorporated with one set of exceptions. two exceptions. Excuse me, one set of exceptions, and that was that the annual report for the Board of Selectmen is written on a calendar year basis from January to December. So in some of my language, I said, we're looking forward to receiving, for instance, the dispatch report. When I was writing it, I'd already read the dispatch report. We had it, the feasibility study. But to keep the language in line with the calendar year, we hadn't received it at that time. So those comments I did not include. And John and I went back and forth with a little repartee around my mistake on Omicron or Omicron. It's often mispronounced, and I not only mispronounced it, I insisted to Mr. Round that I had it correct and that I had looked on the CDC site, and I was totally wrong. So not being too proud most of the time, I apologize to John and to the board for that mistake.
Not a problem. We'll work on the Greek alphabet.
And it has been corrected in the last document that you got sent out on Friday. So if there's no other questions on that, we can vote to
Move
accept.
to approve the chairman's report for
Thank
the calendar year 2021.
Second,
I'll second that.
Moved by Ms. Harrison, seconded by Mr. Jake, Ms. Jakes and Mr. Round. I saw those eyes go up. We're getting a little testy here, Sharon. We're not usually like this. Roll call vote. Mr. Bowling,
Yes.
Mr. Round,
Yes.
Ms. Jakes,
yes,
and Ms. Harrison.
Yes,
And the chair votes yes. Sarah Melish has been very gently texting me, saying, did you vote the capital budget? And the answer to that question, as she well knows, is thank you for reminding me. We did not vote the capital budget.
Well, you actually did when you approved the warrant, because it contains the capital.
Mhm.
But if you want to do the belt and suspenders approach, I'm happy for you to approve.
Sarah, did you hear what Mr. Fetterspiel just said?
Oh, sorry.
Did you hear what Greg just said? That when we voted the warrant, we voted the capital budget. I just didn't specify the figure. So I'm good with that. Unless there's an objection in the board and if they want to go and.
What, so you voted for the warrant for the budget, but you voted it separately.
Right, because
and-
the budget in the warrant that we have in front of us, the capital budget of $3,356,425 is included in the document.
Right, but I think if you're
but-
gonna vote the budget separately, you need to vote the capital budget separately.
The Article 4 budget is not included in the warrant that we voted on.
It is.
No, what I'm saying is the numbers aren't.
Well, it's your choice, but I would vote on the capital budget. But it's your choice.
Okay, so to respond to the comment of the chair of the FinCom, can I get a motion to move the capital budget at $3,356,425? They worked really hard on this and they want their number in there, and I agree with that.
so moved.
so move. Second.
Moved by Ms. Jakes and seconded by Ms. Harrison. Roll call vote. Mr. Bowling,
Yes.
Ms. Jakes,
Yes.
Mr. Round,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you, Sarah. You guys worked really hard on that budget, I know.
Thanks.
Okay. Now. Board of Selectmen policy reviews. And can you share your screen? And these are all first readings, correct?
Yes.
And to the members of the public who are on this policy review is a goal that was voted on by the board back in August when we established our goals for this year. And we've been going through, starting with the very first policies that the Board of Selectmen in Manchester wrote, and all the way up through today. And you can see we're whizzing along at 1989 policy number 1. I think we've done 5 in total out of a much larger list. And Ann Harrison has led the effort here and done, along with Eli, has done a yeoman's job formatting this so that we can read it and follow it side by side.
Okay, given that the first Board of Selectmen in Manchester was elected in 1645, I think getting to 1989 is pretty damn good. Okay, the public hearing procedures are that were set in 89 have been followed as far as I can tell since then. So the changes in this one are primarily changing the executive secretary to town administrator, changing the reference to tape recorded to recorded to include the fact that we will be doing video recordings, and to delete the reference to zoning issues. What else is there to say?
I noticed that you didn't delete special hearing procedures for dog complaints.
Nope. I think I'm a dog person. The special consideration for dogs who can't speak for themselves seem to me to be appropriate.
Any comments from the board on this? So everybody's good on this as it's written?
For first pass, yes.
Okay. Do we need a motion to go to second reading?
Hold still
Yes.
just a second.
Excuse me, Eli?
Hold still just a second.
Mhm.
Um, So I would suggest that actually looking at this where a dog is considered vicious, to compart with the two types of hearings that we have hearings for dangerous or qualifying the dog as either a dangerous or a nuisance animal. I would suggest that we replace vicious with dangerous or a nuisance.
Okay. Let's see. Convince this to, oh, where am I? Okay,
It's a good point, Eli, because those are the terms that have been used by the animal control.
okay, replace vicious,
With dangerous or a nuisance.
dangerous, or a.
It doesn't have to be a nuisance. It can just be nuisance. It can be nuisance. I mean,
Okay, there it is. That's the problem. Ah.
Not to be incredibly picky, but I would reverse those,
Okay,
just because dangerous is a heavier degree. Thank you, Ann.
Yeah, that's fine.
is considered.
Yep.
Okay, they're both on the other side.
You get a double space after the second war.
Mhm.
Are we good to move that to second reading? There are other comments.
I would move it.
Okay.
Make a motion that we move the policy 89, the updates to policy 89-1 as presented in this meeting to a second reading.
Second,
Roll call vote. Mr. Round,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes,
Mr. Bowling,
Yes.
Ms. Jakes,
yes.
and the chair votes yes.
okay. The next policy, I present to you for your thoughts and but it is not currently being followed. And I would like to have some direction from the board before I attempt to alter it.
This was not included in our packet, is that correct?
It's not included in your packet. If you want to stop now, that's fine with me.
No, that's fine.
I don't know what, yeah. I didn't prepare the packet. But I can send this to you.
Would you do
Um,
that, Ann?
Yeah, sure.
And
And did you check on what you say present practice does not follow this policy, and I'm kind of aware of that. Do you know what the general policy is now, or you just know it doesn't?
Yeah, policy is you put it up, you leave it up. If it falls apart,
Okay.
maybe you take it down.
are you saying that it's
So
not
that's practice.
following it in terms of taking it down every night and putting it back up?
Right.
Okay,
On calls all the time.
I'm sorry, Becky?
The one at town hall is up all the time. It is lit.
That,
Yes, so that's okay. But the one at the fire station is not, and the one at Tux Point is not.
I think the one at town hall is put up and taken down by the police department, and the first shift in the morning and the last shift in the evening.
I don't believe that it is, John. I think it stays up all night.
Okay,
But
I thought
a lit flag can stay up all night
Correct.
okay.
under flag protocols.
Yeah. Although it's unfortunate that it's uplit because that's light pollution.
Yes, I was going to get around to sending this to you.
Okay, so if you could forward this to us, and the concerns that you're raising are primarily that the flags go up and they stay up.
Yep. There's more later.
More later
Can
on
I-
flags.
Yeah. Hang on. Now I've lost myself altogether. Let me send this to you after the meeting. I'm getting myself thoroughly confused.
Okay, when you send it to us, Ann,
Yeah, yes,
I don't think that there's a huge rush on this. We won't hear it again until the 19th.
Mhm.
But if you could send it to us like a week in advance anyway, and
Yes.
with any comments that you have about concerns about it not being followed.
yep. I have lost my screen. God. Great. Okay, it's participants.
Buried the window somewhere.
The window's kind of up at the top, but it's only the bottom piece. Okay, let me.
Can you see the green bar for screen sharing?
Yep,
If
and
you,
there,
and the red bar at the end of it that says,
yeah, stop share.
yeah, stop share.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
Now let me share it again because there are two more that we could touch on. Okay. This is where it gets the half-staff, for whom half-staff who's responsible? Anyway, okay. The next policy is the equal opportunity policy, which I spoke with Greg about, and he thinks that this is not necessary as a Board of Selectmen policy. It should be a personnel policy. And it already is.
It already is, yes.
So if it's acceptable to the board, I will make that notation there.
Greg, who's responsible for changes in personnel policy?
So ultimately, you approve those policies. So we have a couple of these policies that we've already talked about. I'm sort of waiting to see what other ones, so we sort of do it at once. It actually requires me to hold a public hearing, mainly for staff. And then it's presented to you for final approval.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we have some review of those policies.
The other question I had is I think this does not cover sexual orientation, and it probably should.
Right in the middle of second paragraph.
Yeah. This I've gone on to housing, which is confusing. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go on to housing.
Okay.
because
So,
we're clear on that.
okay. I'm not sure whether the town is the selectmen are required to have a policy on fair housing. I'm not sure what we do about fair housing. Whether that is anything that's really in our bailiwick.
Yeah, I was going to check with town council to see what guidance she has on this.
Okay. And that's what I have done so far.
Okay.
So I will send you basically the same document with my notes on where I think the flag policy is not being followed, and where I think it may be overly specific. I believe, for example, that it doesn't allow us to lower the flag to half-staff if somebody in a town personality dies. Okay.
That's where you start to get crossing lines with national flag policy.
Exactly.
Um,
And maybe we can just have the national flag policy and include it by reference, and if anybody cares, they can look it up. I
Okay.
think I have my direction, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for preparing this. Okay. The next item on our agenda, consent agenda, in which we have the minutes from March 21st.
I was not able to get anything that came in today. I was not able to take a look at.
Okay, so you haven't reviewed the minutes yet?
I can recuse myself from that. And you all can go ahead and vote.
No,
I would rather not, because I mean, unless you don't want to read them.
No, I do. I do.
Okay, so I would rather pull them out and do them on the 19th. We're still within the 1 month. Okay. The Adele Irvin Award, the polling location designation for Memorial Elementary School, moving the voting back to Memorial, and the approval of the half marathon, for which we asked them to submit the map, and it was submitted. That's the consent agenda with the minutes pulled out. Any other items that people have a concern about that they want to pull out of that? So can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Ann and seconded by Mr. Brown. Roll call vote, Mr. Bowling,
Yeah,
Mr. Round,
Yes.
Ms. Jakes,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Bodmer Turner votes yes. And correspondence, we have delightful Form 500 from Comcast, which outlines all the complaints that they received from people in town. And there was a comment, well, we can come back to that in Greg's. Did you include that in your TA report, Greg? The Comcast?
I did
500?
not. No, I did not. So you can talk about it right now if you like.
Okay, well, there was a comment about whether we wanted to invite Comcast in to explain how they're handling these various complaints, because we just get numbers.
I think that's important. I think we definitely should do that.
Jeff,
Yes, sir.
I would support that as well. If you could delay them coming in just a little bit, there's a little bit of research that I'm doing that I'd like to try to complete before they come in.
Okay, Eli, would May 2nd be okay? If they can come? Or do you
I was
want
actually
longer?
thinking a little bit longer than that in June.
In June?
Mhm.
You're towing the line about whether you'll be a board member.
Oh, I can still be a pest, a public pest.
I'm assuming that you will be.
Oh, it'll be my honor and a privilege. I will be respectful of your time.
So June 6th. That's our first meeting in June, will be the 6th.
I think we should move it after the town meeting if we're going to do it in June. And Eli's not concerned about being a voting member of the board. Is that okay with you, Eli? The 20th?
Yeah,
Because we're gonna, we may be having discussions about some things that will happen during town meeting on the 6th.
Mm.
Okay.
Just question, Jeff, have we ever got this form before?
Annually.
Okay, I'm just trying to think back.
it's always about the same.
Yeah,
Quiet little form.
okay.
Did you have a specific question about it, John?
No, I it did not ring a bell with me when I saw it. I mean, we see things from Xfinity periodically, but I don't recall the form from last year.
Thing is, you get this once a year, so it's
Yes,
among the other mass of stuff. It's easy to forget about.
yep.
Okay, we're going to move on to the town administrator's report.
Okay, 3 items to review. The first one is the comments that were provided to the MBTA, or actually to DHCD, regarding the new MBTA, the transit-oriented development, the guidelines that they have in draft form. You reviewed and signed off on a letter to Department of Housing about these draft guidelines, expressing concerns and some recommendations. You had 8 recommendations for changes to the guidelines. The planning board on a 5-2 vote also approved, endorsing those. those same recommendations for changes. And in fact, some of the language was modified a bit based on some planning board input, which was helpful. So that's on the website. People can take a look at it if they would like to. We do have a website page dedicated to this whole topic of goes under various titles, MBTA transit-oriented development or MBTA multi-housing requirements, or it's also section chapter 40A, section 3A. So it goes under various names.
Greg, may
Also,
I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
No,
I
go
just
ahead.
ask you, have you heard from any of the other Cape Ann towns about this specific directly?
Yes, so there were a number of communities have submitted individual letters. There was also a North Shore managers and town administrators letter that went in. There were 12 of us who signed off. At least last I saw it, was 12. Colleagues of mine signed a letter also expressing some concerns. Some of the same concerns, some additional concerns. The MMA put in an extensive comment letter, is some 20 pages long. We also have that. We have a link to that on our page that relates to this. MAPC put in, I think, a 7 or 8 page letter commenting on the guidelines and making a number of recommendations as well. Again, some of those were similar to the recommendations that you made. So my understanding is the state has received quite a large volume of comments regarding the draft guidelines. And certainly the hope and expectation is that they will take them to heart and rework the guidelines. And we're not sure what process they might undertake to do that. We'll monitor that to see if they either hold some additional hearings or release a second draft for comments, or whether or not we'll just wait and see and get final guidelines. I'm not sure yet how that's going to play out, but we will continue to monitor it to see and keep folks updated. And we'll be putting up an occasional update on the page that we have on our website.
And just so that the public knows, that when you come to the homepage on the website, there is a button that takes you directly to MBTA zoning with all those links that Greg's talking about.
So a lot of future steps. We're in the early stages of this whole process. So we have a law, but we don't have the guidelines that expand upon and give us a roadmap for how to react to the law. Ultimately, it'll be up to the town to decide whether or not it wants to comply. And like I say, we're in the very early stages of this. We need to see what the final regulations are going to be, or the final guidelines. And our next deadline, if it stays as it currently is in the draft guidelines, our next deadline is the end of this year, when we would be expected to submit basically a game plan, how we plan to move forward with addressing the new law and the steps we are planning to take to decide whether or not we want to. So that's the next deadline, at least in the draft guidelines. We'll see if that remains. But that's the next step in the process. We obviously will be waiting for the final guidelines from the state. So that's where we are. I think that the comments that have been submitted, both by you as a board, by the planning board, and by our neighboring communities, and by various organizations in the state, have been very robust. There's a lot of comments, and as I say, I'm hopeful that the state will be responsive to those and be modifying the guidelines so that it becomes a process that it can be more tailored to the needs of each community. So stay tuned. And like I say, very early stages of all of this, and lots of discussion and decisions to be coming down the road.
Greg, do we hear back from them before the December date?
Yeah.
Yes, well,
I mean, I gotta believe they
I'm
got a lot of comments.
Yeah, so like I say, I would expect them to give us an update, in a couple months
Okay.
at least,
All
at the latest. And then I would expect, if they were moving forward, I would expect some final guidelines sometime in the summer, unless they decide that they need to slow this down significantly and engage in a more methodical and comprehensive engagement process with all communities to see how best to recraft these guidelines.
Okay, all right. So a lot more is going to happen between now and December, or is expected to.
Yes, I would
Yeah,
certainly
okay.
predict that.
Okay.
So moving on, 40B update. The zoning board continues their work in the hearing process. They pick it up again tomorrow evening. Tomorrow night is picking up on traffic and also on architectural review. There will be additional environmental discussions and review. They hope to meet twice a month going forward. I think actually they have 3 meetings in April, and then 2 meetings in May and a couple meetings in June. So right now it's been extended 1 month. So to finish up the deadline now to finish up the hearing process would be the end of June 23 or 24. And then if the zoning board feels it has completed its review, it would close its hearing and have 40 days from that point to issue a decision. Still a good amount of work to be done and more testimony and evidence to take in. I think the peer reviewers that the ZBA has hired are doing very good work for the ZBA. I think they're pretty pleased with the quality of the review that the consultants that we have hired are doing, and they are going into a lot of detail, and will be presenting many of their findings in the upcoming hearing dates. A more detailed wildlife habitat study is underway. They have analyzed the known vernal pools, and they have confirmed vernal pool species have been identified in the pools, and those same species have been identified in a couple of potential vernal pools. So they have uncovered some additional vernal pools on the property. So that'll come into play with the review that the ZBA is doing. The applicant has also filed a request to connect to the town sewer system. As you recall, during the LIP negotiations, there was a lot of back and forth on that. In the end, you declined to accept their request to connect to the sewer system, preferring instead that they process the water on site, and that water would recharge into the aquifer and be part of our watershed. Obviously, I'm sorry?
Have we received our letter from the state yet, lifting the moratorium?
We have, yes. The consent order has not been rescinded, but the
That's-
moratorium has been lifted.
But not the consent order. Okay, thank you.
Right.
I
In terms of the consent order, we are, they want to see one more round of I&I monitoring and follow-up. And I think after that, the state will be ready to rescind the consent order.
And is that scheduled?
Yes, this spring.
Okay, thank you.
So this issue will be something that the ZBA will be dealing with. Not at this coming meeting and perhaps not at the next, but certainly down the road. I think the ZBA will be asking for more details from the applicant as to why he is seeking connection to the sewer system rather than pursuing the onsite as he had originally presented. So stay tuned on that. That'll be subject to much more discussion going forward. So that's a quick update on where the 40B lies. And like I say, the ZBA continues to be meeting quite frequently. They'll be meeting 2-3 times this month and a couple of times both in May and June at a minimum. And they're working methodically and carefully through all the issues that this project presents. Lastly, just a quick update on the harbor. Probably be good to have Brian come on in as sort of a preseason update as he prepares for another busy season on the water. Some good news is that the state is allowing harbor masters and their staff to continue to enforce boating rules and regulations. As you recall, there was talk about them not allowing that only fully trained police officers could do that enforcement. And it's, I'm glad that they are not moving forward with that, at least at this time. So that makes it obviously easier for us to do enforcing with our current staff on the water. I think, as you know, we gave you an update quickly that Brian was able to locate a used Eastern to replace his current one that is no longer seaworthy, has leaks in it that aren't fixable. So he was able to find a used boat with a good engine on it instead of buying new. So he saved quite a bit of money, as Brian is wont to do with his Yankee frugality. So I applaud his efforts there. And with those savings, he can use the money that was allocated for the new boat and motor for the new motors that are needed for the safe boat. And so that's enabled us to propose in the new capital budget that'll be before voters and at the April town meeting, divert those monies that were going to go to the motor and now put it towards improving the docks at Reed Park, the transient docks, to provide water and electricity as utilities and generate more revenue as we look forward to dredging. So we are continuing to do the permitting for a second phase of dredging. That'll be an expensive project, and having as much revenue from non-taxes will be helpful as we get ready for that second round of dredging. It's still a few years off. The permitting process takes quite a while with the Army Corps and the testing that needs to be done prior to dredging. The work at Tux is getting underway, got underway this week, or getting underway this week. Today's Monday. So I think tomorrow they're starting and working on getting the new floats on piles off of the rotunda. So that work is getting underway. At the same time, they'll be taking a hard look at the understructure of the rotunda and seeing if there's some shoring up that can happen to make sure that remains in place for the season before we talk about its future and repair needs. So lots going on in the harbor as the new season is not too far away. And as I say, we can have Brian come in and give a little more detailed update on staffing, which I think is of interest to folks.
When do you think we should do that, Greg? The 19th? What second?
Yeah, let me check with Brian's schedule. I know that he had a couple of things coming up, but let me see which is better for him.
Okay.
So those were the 3 items that I wanted to go over.
Any questions about Greg's report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to the ZBA, you said that they're meeting on a regular schedule and they have to. What happens if they get to the current deadline and they're not satisfied that they have all the answers that they need.
So they would request an additional extension from the applicant. If he were to say no, then they would say whatever items that were still outstanding, they would say we have insufficient information to make a positive finding, and therefore we would deny that those particular remaining items, or those waiver requests. So basically, they have to go through a whole list of waiver requests and see if they have enough evidence to either approve the request or to deny the request.
Thank you.
Any further comments on Greg's report? Okay, just for a point of clarification, town council has advised us that the ZBA can make a binding recommendation that we have to extend the sewer to this project if that's their determination. The extension would, at this point, be paid for by the developer. And it would not mean an extension of the entire sewer district to that area, but just to this one project. Because
So they have the, I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
we as selectmen sit as sewer commissioners, and there'll be more feedback and discussion about the selectmen's role as sewer commissioners in these decisions. Go ahead, Greg.
Right, so just again, as part of the comprehensive permit law under 40B, the ZBA assumes the role of many different boards and commissions in town as part of that comprehensive permit. And so that's how they have, in essence, they become you in this particular instance in terms of sewer commissioners. However, you still can provide your input and recommendation to them.
Okay. Any further comments or questions on Greg's report? Any other matters that had not been considered in our agenda by the chair? I have none. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Moved by Ms. Jakes, seconded by Mr. Bowling. Roll call vote. Mr. Round,
Yes.
Mr. Bowling,
Yes.
Ms. Jakes,
Yes, please.
Ms. Harrison,
yes.
Mr. Podden Turner votes yes. Thank you very much. I want to thank Sharon for joining us tonight to do minutes. And we say good night to everybody.
All right, thank you all.
Good night.
You, good night.
Mhm.